Movie theater, here we come. They are not messing around over here. Look at all that. Bow, bow, bow. Pick this popcorn box up real quick. I'm not actually getting popcorn. I'm not in the mood today, but it seems like a special occasion. Thank you. Let's go.
Because here they are. AMC.
I think you know nothing about Mario. Yeah. But like, you know. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I just finished watching the Mario movie, and I have some thoughts. I overall had fun. I wouldn't say this was the mind-blowing movie that a lot of people I think are hoping it to be, but it's still pretty good. You go in there, and I think you'll be entertained. My recommendation to you is go into this movie with the mentality of, this is like a really fun amusement park ride. You're just going to be taken from one cool or fun or funny moment to the next. And for a lot of people, that's all they want and need out of this movie. They don't need to be moved in a substantial way. They just want something that will cuddle them with a good time. And if that's what you're looking for, you're going to get that with this movie. Narratively, this movie doesn't do a whole lot. For my part, I feel like because there's no gameplay to compensate for the fact that the games aren't narratively all that substantial, I hoped that this movie would have a little more narrative meat on it. It doesn't quite have that, but it did give me that fluffy feeling by the end. Like I came out of that movie in a better mood than when I came into it. You can tell that the team put a lot of love into it. As Mario fans, as a love letter to Mario, this definitely hits a lot of great notes. Mario fans will have a lot to gawk at in this movie. The best way I can describe this movie is that it feels like the people who created this movie had a bunch of set pieces in mind and a bunch of references, a bunch of things. They're like, ooh, it'd be cool to have this in the movie, it'd be cool to have that in the movie. And then they found ways to kind of like string them together. Instead of going, all right, here's the story we want to tell, and so let's pick and choose what makes sense for that story. It feels like Mario's biggest hits all kind of just strung together and kind of patched together. And so the movie lacks a certain sense of cohesion. It just feels like set pieces strung together that moves at a pretty rapid pace. 1 second you're, in Brooklyn, and then, we're in Mushroom Kingdom, and then, training montage, and then, let's go out and, adventure out in some cool Mario environments, and, now it's karts time, and then, now it's this fight with Donkey Kong, and then whatever. And it's just like, it's just that for the whole movie. That's kind of the extent of the dialogue and the way they connect things. That you say, we gotta go now, let's do the next thing. And so the connecting thread is very kind of shoddily put together, and so the flow of the movie is just a little weird. It's just very it doesn't give you time to breathe. It's just boom, 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 one thing after the next, so it's hard to care about any one moment aside from I see what they did there with these visuals. I see what that is. I remember that from that Mario game. That stuff is kind of what this movie seems to be shooting for first and foremost. This movie is definitely more style over substance, but at the same time, the style of this movie is really good. It's a really beautiful, beautiful movie. And if what you want are Mario's greatest hits, sort of all compiled together, and just seeing that emotion, this beautifully realized animation, you're gonna like this movie. If what you want are some cool references, some cool callbacks, some cool imagery that you're like, I know where that's from. If you just want to have a movie where you as a Mario fan are like Leo DiCaprio pointing at the movie constantly, you're gonna have a really good time with this. As just a movie, you know what I mean? Forget the Mario nostalgia and all that stuff. That's just the movie itself. it's just fine. It's all right. It's not bad, but it's not going to blow you away. The story is pretty basic. On one hand, you have Mario, who is isekai'd into this Mushroom Kingdom world. On the other hand, you got Peach, who's trying to save Mushroom Kingdom from Bowser's invasion because Bowser wants to marry Peach, and if he doesn't get that, then he'll burn down the whole kingdom. And those are the kind of two major threads. And then from there, adventures abound. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's just set pieces strung together with that basic plot in mind. And if you're just into watching Mario do Mario things, Bowser do Bowser things, Luigi do Luigi things, and Peach, well, Peach is a very different character. She's pretty badass in this one. She's very much not the princess who has to be rescued. She is the one who's just kicking ass. Even compared to Mario, she looks more badass than Mario, which is interesting. Of course, Mario and Luigi, they all have their moments. So that's kind of the best way I can describe this movie. Just, if you want Mario things just constantly thrown at you, Mario references from all these different games, mainline entries from, side, spin-off entries and all these things, you're going to find a lot of things to point at and be like, oh, I know where that's from. And like even just the animation, you're like, oh, that animation's from that game, that animation's from that game, that suit is from that game, so on and so forth. If that's what you're into, then you're going to enjoy this. The music, you're going to find plenty of like Leo DiCaprio pony moments in the music, certainly. And they just call on a lot of the Mario games and the iconic music there to really liven up the whole thing, with occasional like pop songs mixed in, which kind of, I don't know. I wish they would have kept it strictly like video game music, if you will, just Mario music instead of throwing in pop songs in there, but that's just kind of what Hollywood does. And then there are the performances. By far, without question, Jack Black steals the show as Bowser. He made me crack up multiple times throughout the movie. They really focus on the Bowser falling in love with Peach situation, and that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to spoil that aspect because the way Jack Black portrays Bowser is just so freaking good. He was the perfect choice for this character, and he really puts his all into it to great comedic effect, and even to, at times, terrifying effect. Bowser can be a little scary in this movie, and I really like that. We get to see different facets of this character. Bowser was the highlight of this movie. And then there are the Mario Brothers. I've talked before about Chris Pratt, what I think about his performance. I think Charlie Day's Luigi is pretty perfect. It's because Charlie Day just naturally has that high-pitched, nasally textured voice that is Luigi enough where he can just get away with using like a more heightened version of his regular voice and bring Luigi to life in a way where, it's not Charles Martinet Luigi, but it sounds Luigi enough. Then there's Chris Pratt. I would say that it's 50-50. 50% of the times I'm like, ooh, there's like enough Mario in there where, I'm like, okay, this is Mario, but then there's another 50% of the time where his voice goes really baritone, and it just takes me out. Mario, like Chris Pratt, I think can do the Mario voice, but it's, like when he's up here like doing, it's talking up here, then it sounds like Mario. But sometimes he goes down here and goes, let's go, and like he, it just, you hear that the more textured, older Chris Pratt in Mario, that's when it just stops sounding like Mario entirely and kind of takes me out a little bit of the character. Mario is the star of the movie, so you really had to nail the vibe of the character, and with Chris Pratt, it feels 50-50. It's mixed. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I can buy this as Mario. Other times I'm like, ooh, it doesn't sound like Mario anymore. It really varies. There are ups and downs. It's this roller coaster ride as far as the voice of Mario is concerned. It took me out enough where it was a bit detrimental, but it also like didn't ruin the movie by any means. I feel like if you're not like a Mario fan or whatever, you'll be fine with Chris Pratt's performance. But if you're someone like me, a gamer, or someone who just generally knows what Mario sounds like, sometimes it'll sound like him, sometimes it won't. So that's kind of, I'd say Chris Pratt's performance as Mario was the most underwhelming out of all the characters. Jack Black's Bowser, easily the best, like no question about it. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, really good. He doesn't have a lot of screen time, if you will, Toad, but what screen time he does have, I'm like, that sounds like a version of Toad. where it's not exactly like the Toad from the games per se, but it's got enough of those qualities and textures that you're like, yep, I buy that as Toad. And then Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach. So because her voice is not quite what you find in the video game. It's not that, oh, Mario kind of voice, but that's the voice of like that, I guess, that princess who needs saving. And with the movie here, they're going for a Peach who's a lot tougher. So they brought down her vocal quality to something that's more akin to Anya Taylor-Joy, who has like a sort of a deeper kind of female register. And I'd say for the kind of Peach that they went for in this movie, it works. It's not the Peach that I know. It's a very different Peach, but I liked what they did with Peach here, actually. I like that she just was badass. In this movie, the damsel in distress is actually like Luigi. He falls into the clutches of Bowser, and Mario's goal is to save Luigi, and Peach's goal is to save her kingdom. So, I don't know, I dug what they did with Peach, even if it's different from the game. And then there's Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. It just sounds like Seth Rogen, but weirdly, because of just Seth Rogen's natural vocal texture, you hear Seth Rogen, and yet it matches enough with how you'd expect like a Donkey Kong-esque character to sound that I eventually bought into it. And they lean into Seth Rogen antics like his laughter and stuff like that. So it is gonna sound like Seth Rogen. But if you imagine like a younger sounding Donkey Kong, then I think you do get Seth Rogen's performance. It was good enough. But vocal quality aside, in terms of pure performance, I'd say for the most part, everyone did a pretty good job. I'll once again bring up Chris Pratt because I feel like his energy level didn't quite match some of the other characters' energy, where they heightened it enough for the medium of animation, whereas with Chris Pratt, sometimes he sounded pretty good, and then other times he goes and those efforts, just not quite the level that fits the heightened animation style of this movie. Whereas Jack Black, he goes all out, he's 110% all the time, and it's so perfect. I cannot emphasize how good Jack Black is in this movie. This movie is worth watching for Jack Black alone. That's how good he is. For me, he was the heart of this movie. He was the most entertaining part of this movie. But yeah, overall, very basic plot with Mario-esque set pieces that will make you go, man, yeah, I remember all those stuff. It'll make you feel nostalgic if you're a gamer. If you're not a Mario fan, it's a serviceable enough movie that you can go watch with a family and have a good time, have a few laughs, and enjoy, the vistas that it presents, the world that is beautifully realized, and just have like a fun time where you can just turn your brain off and watch these animated characters do fun things. I didn't walk out of the theater with utter glee or anything. I was just like, you know what? That tickled me. That tickled my Mario bones. That tickled the gamer inside me. That tickled the Mario fan in me, the person who, has been playing Mario games since as far as he can remember. That side of me was tickled, and I, laughed and chuckled here and there, and I left the theater with a smile, but I wasn't like, holy shit, everyone has to see this movie right now. You don't have to rush to see this, but one day when you do, it'll tickle you. It'll leave you with a smile. It'll be fun enough. Just don't expect substance in this movie. Narrative substance, character arc substance, all that stuff, just like almost non-existent. I do like the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, and they try to really emphasize their brotherhood and, the love that they share for each other as brothers. And, there are aspects of Mario where they try to develop him a little bit. He starts out as like a loser, if you will, or just someone who's just down in the dumps. And then, he gains a lot of confidence throughout the movie, and by the end, especially. And they try to give him a little bit of that arc. It's just kind of very surface level stuff when it comes to Mario's character development, and I use that term loosely in this one. The reason you're going to be checking out this movie is just to see Mario's greatest hits in high fidelity cinematic form. That's kind of the main draw of this movie. So yeah, those are basically my thoughts on the Mario movie. I don't think it's as good as it could have been, but it's also certainly not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's a nice little time. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in, folks. I hope this was informative for those who are gauging whether they want to see this in theaters or not, or wait for a bit. I'm curious to see how they evolve further with, I have little doubt that we're going to get a sequel to the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I just hope that they're able to infuse some narrative and character substance so that it's not just about, wow, look, Mario things, because there's only so much that will carry a movie. For this first outing, it's, good enough. But for the second outing, I think they really need to push that and elevate that, and it can't just be the best hits of Mario games and references. They have to infuse some more substance in there. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, folks. I don't do many movie reviews, but this one's obviously very seminal for video games. It's the Mario movie, so I figured this was it was worth sharing my thoughts with you guys. And hopefully I'll get to do another one of these with future sort of video game related movies. If you've seen the Mario movie, share in the comments below what your opinions are on it. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.